So friends, this morning, in the first few sessions, we tried to start changing a fact. The fact being that the Indian diaspora is not generous with our wallets. And thank you so much for everyone that's here today who has contributed to Chalo Give. A big round of applause to everybody in this room. Since we started lunch, I noticed that it's gone up by about $500. So people are eating and they're giving. So MR, you'll be thrilled to know that. I don't know where MR is, but there he is. Yeah. All right, great. Now we are going to bust a myth. And I'll tell you what the myth is in a second. But basically, what we are going to do is we are going to introduce IPA. Not India Pale Ale, although some of you might wish. But it's the India Philanthropy Alliance. And I'll tell you what it is in just a quick second before I get off the stage and leave it to all the other members to talk about it. But essentially, the India Philanthropy Alliance is an alliance of 11 organizations that are philanthropic organizations that are based in the US and that focus extensively on giving to India across a variety of different causes. These organizations collaboratively came together in order to really enlarge the pie and not slice up the pie. Right? So we want to share best practices and do all of those kinds of things. Really, I want to shine the spotlight for a moment on someone who has not taken the stage today as yet, but will later on this afternoon. We would not have been here introducing the IPA without that person's desire, that person's tenacity, and tireless leadership. I'm referring to Alex Counts in the back of the room. Alex, if you want to stand up for a second. Alex serves as the CEO of the IPA, and it was his dream a couple of years ago that got this started. I remember early conversations that he had with me, MR, other members of the IPA, and we started collaborating informally 2 years ago at an Indiaspora summit, at an Indiaspora forum, actually, our annual event in the Washington, D.C. suburbs in 2017. And I'm delighted to say that thanks to Alex's leadership and the participation of everybody, all the members, it's grown to a point where today we are ready to officially announce it. I will also say, just a quick little plug, Alex, in addition to being many other things, he has an illustrious career in philanthropy. He's also an author. And at the back of the room, he's selling a book about how to change the world without losing your mind. All right. So, basically, let me just tell you a very quick anecdote. There is a famous diplomat in the US-India space who likes to talk about these various episodes that when he was an ambassador, he would enter the room at a US embassy or consulate or Indian embassy or consulate, and he would find an exclusive event of 35, 40 people, and all of those 35 people would have their business cards saying, I'm the president of this Indian society or that Indian alliance. And upon digging deeper, he would learn that that society or alliance had a membership of exactly one person, the president, right? So, but we are, Indiaspora is a proud member of the India Philanthropy Alliance. And as a member, I'm here to tell you today that the myth that the Indian diaspora does not collaborate should be consigned to the scrap heap of history, all right? We as a member are delighted to be part of the India Philanthropy Alliance. And in order to tell you a little more about it, to unveil the project and talk a little more about what it's all about, how it came about, and what we plan to do, let me invite 3 people up on stage. I'm going to invite the chairman of Pratham, Deepak Raj, who today, for a moment, probably the most important title that he has, is our inaugural chairman of the India Philanthropy Alliance. We are also proud to call him an Indiaspora member. And our 2 vice chairmen, Nishant Pandey, who is the CEO of American India Foundation, AIF. And Minoo Gupta, who is the president of the FFE Foundation for Excellence. So if you'd like to come on stage, Deepak, please take it away, and the vice chairman.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thanks for that introduction. Much appreciated. Good afternoon, friends. I think we're having a great day today. Thanks to Indiaspora. It's very well organized and very helpful in many, many ways. So I'm just following up on Sanjeev that I'm here to introduce you to a new effort that we are launching today, the Indian Philanthropic Alliance. It's a very exciting day for us. It is a culmination of 2 years of hard work, especially by Alex, by Sanjeev, and by Gabriel. Where's Gabriel? Hi. The idea germinated, as Sanjeev mentioned, from MR and Alex and Sanjeev. And I think it was, MR really kicked it into gear a couple of years ago. He got a few of us together for a free-ranging discussion about the merits of forming an alliance. It was in a suburb of Philadelphia, I think, 2 hours from, an hour and a half from Philadelphia. And he also very generously agreed to fund it, which was terrific. So a hand for MR for all that you are doing, MR. Under the direction of Alex, we embarked on this journey. And it's absolutely wonderful that we have reached to this stage. The idea behind IPA, is a desire that all of us have, that we are doing pretty well individually, but we can be a lot more impactful if you acted collectively. The 11 organizations represented in the coalition have impacted almost 70 million lives. 70 million lives over the years, and this year have raised about $125 million. So significant sums of money. About half of that came from the US. This is impressive, especially when it comes to 70 million lives. But when I look at the 70 odd million dollars raised in the US, I think that's relatively small, compared to the total philanthropic dollars raised here in this great country. It seems we have the opportunity to position India as a destination of choice for the philanthropic dollars here, not only from our community, but also from the Americans at large. We can help each other in many other ways as well, and you will hear about these initiatives later on today. So just overarching, I can think of 4 things. One is, how do we encourage our community to give more generously? It is something that we really need to focus on, and we are working on doing that. How do we engage the next generation and the generation after that? Very, very important. A bunch of us are immigrants. I came to this country many years ago. But ultimately, I think we have to pass a torch to the next generation year after that and make sure they keep engaged. Third thing, once again, repeating myself a little bit, but how do we position India as a destination for philanthropic dollars here broadly? And the fourth thing, when there's a whole session which is going to be devoted to this in the afternoon, is that how do we make life a little bit easier for the NGOs in India? It is not easy. It is very, very tough, in fact. And then how do we remove some of the barriers? Help, not we can't remove it. How can we help remove some of the barriers, in operating in India? So the Alliance chose me as chairman, and it has been my privilege to serve in this capacity with my 2 co-chairs, Nishant and Minoo. Thank you, Nishant and Minoo, for a wonderful job. Thanks for getting us here. I know there were some ups and downs in the last couple of years. It's been an interesting journey. But I tell you, I think what really kept us together was this shared values and a deep interest and passion for helping India and helping the population there. So I look forward to working with Minoo and Nishant and all of the 11 members, current 11 members, and hopefully, the pie will grow and make us even more impactful, over time. So now Minoo and Nishant will provide more information on IPA, and this will be followed by a panel discussion, which will be moderated by Bala Venkatachalam, who is the executive director of Pratham USA, and you will hear from all the other members of the alliance as well. So thank you very much again, MR. Thanks very much. Thanks to Alex, Minoo, Nishant, all the members of the alliance. We look forward to working together and with all of you to take India-focused philanthropy to greater heights. Thanks very much. I'm going to turn it over to Nishant and Minoo now, and we'll go from there.
Deepak, thank you very much. With your leadership, we can only hope for very, very big things to come for India Philanthropy Alliance. Thank you. So my name is Minoo Gupta. I'm current president and board member for Foundation for Excellence. So I have a little story to share, and then I'll, tell you a little bit about FFE as well as IPA. So Ananta, a very bright and inspiring girl who lived in the village next to, in the urban outskirts of Chennai, she really wanted to become a professional, but both of her parents did not have any jobs, and they both all lived in village. So her mom was really determined and was inspirational in telling her and motivating her to continue to study. So she finished her high school and then also secured an admission in engineering college. And as all of us know who have been through this journey, how difficult it is to get into any engineering college in India. And at that point, she was faced at a crossroad. She was at a crossroad to figure out how to secure funds to get to engineering college. So luckily for her, mom knew a friend who introduced her to FFE. And at that point, Ananta applied for FFE scholarship. And today, Ananta is working at Google in Mountain View after completing her education and moving to US to do higher studies. And she has changed her life, her family's life, and has inspired many other villagers through her story. So this is the story of 20,000 students that FFE has touched so far. So FFE's mission has been to spot underprivileged students and award them scholarships to become engineers and doctors since its inception in 1994. And we have today 5,500 students enrolled all over India in 450 different colleges in all 27 states. So we try and make sure that the applications that come from all states are honored and vetted fully. Even with the work we have done so far, every year when we look at our pool of scholarships and the money that we have to fund all of them, we have to leave many behind because the need is really, really great. And this is where, when I worked with MR and others in September to have this idea that Alex and MR had put together, that, hey, what if all of us joined hands and amplified our message in a collective fashion and bring more to our causes and support all of our causes individually at a higher level, but also provide a platform where we can see the impact, at scale and be able to influence the policy to drive that work, make that work easier for all of us, and also show that every individual that we touch goes through a journey, and their success depends on success of all of us and many others who are not in this room today supporting the work. So as a vice chair and a dedicated volunteer, I'm really passionate to shape the charter of IPA and be part of defining a collective mission. Since April of 2018, 11 of us, or first 8 organizations, and after some time, another 3 joined us. 8 organizations have met monthly to discuss, what are the challenges that we face, what are the things we want to do, and what are the goals that we want to set forward. And then we also met once in 6 months, face-to-face for all day long retreat. Nishant always says that, teams have to first get together, storm, norm, and transform. So I feel like we've gone through our storming and norming phase, and we are all ready to transform. So it's an exciting phase and a good point for our journey right now. And we really have a single focus that we want to be able to collaborate and have a cohesive mission to be able to transform and make a meaningful impact together in India in the lives of many more millions than what we have done today. I would really encourage all of you to look at the Stanford innovation article that was released yesterday, and that has a lot of detail as to what we have done so far and what we are aspiring to do further. So please take a look at that. And also generously participate and popularize through social media Chalo Give campaign, because this campaign is a way of all of us coming together, not only in building the coalition and alliance to do the work that we do in India and here, but also show that there's a power in collective giving as well to influence all of the various causes in India. So with that, I would like to hand over the mic to Nishant. And before that, we have a quick thank you for Gabriel, because she and Alex together really instrumented all of our meetings, meeting minutes, all the operational details in the background, so we can continue to do our, put our thinking hat and keep going every time we met. So thank you, Gabriel.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Minoo. I think you've covered a lot, so I will be very brief. Hi, everyone. My name is Nishant. I serve as the CEO of American India Foundation. AIF was set up in 2001 as a collective philanthropic platform with the aim of improving the lives of underprivileged, especially women, children, and young people. And we do this through three approaches. The first one is a multi-pronged approach or attack on poverty. We all know that poverty is complex and multidimensional, and therefore AIF works on education, health, and livelihoods, the three most basic, most essential, and most urgent needs of poor people. The second approach is by connecting American and Indian people, resources, and expertise. Unlike in the US, where we have a large, influential, educated, and affluent Indian diaspora, there is no American diaspora in India. So it's also very important for us as AIF to make sure that we develop a constituency of people who are invested in the idea of US and India as the two largest democracies of the world to have a lasting relationship. And the third approach is having an inclusive and a political view of the society. Today is the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. And I don't know how much of you have read his philosophy on giving and trusteeship, but he espoused the philosophy of Sarvodaya through Antyodaya. Sarvodaya means development for all. Antyodaya means upliftment of the weakest. So how do you achieve development of all? Through uplifting the weakest. And all of AIF's programs reflect that in the sense that we provide these essential services of health, education, and livelihoods to women, children, and youth at the last mile in many of the underserved geographies of India. Now, I think Deepak and Minoo have already told you the story. AIF is, of course, very, very proud of being a founding member of IPA. As somebody said in one of the earlier panels, it was a no-brainer. As I said, AIF was set up as a collective philanthropic platform. The whole idea was how to get the community here in the US to engage with the long-term development needs of India. This is back in 2001. And of course, in the last 18 years or so, the philanthropic scene in the US has grown. It has become much more vibrant. There are lots and lots of organizations. But at the same time, a lot of our donors, and not just AIF donors, but donors who support many of our organizations, basically say that it's very fractured, it's not coordinated, and we need to do more to come together and coordinate. And we took that feedback very seriously. And 2 years back, we all came together and say, hey, listen, what can we do? How do we come together? How do we invest some time? How do we prioritize this? And make sure that we learn about each other, make sure that we identify some opportunities to collaborate and coordinate to maximize impact, efficiency, and efficacy of our work. And that's how IPA has come about. Again, I want to thank MR and Alex Alex was the CEO and president of the American India Foundation when he came together with MR to write a paper. That was essentially the genesis of IPA. And over the last 2 years, all of us have invested a lot of time and effort to reach a stage where we feel confident of announcing it to all of you. And I hope that many more organizations which are India focused will join hands with the 11 organizations that are currently members of IPA. I will now stop here and hand over to Bala. We're going to have more members of the IPA come here, and Bala will facilitate that discussion. Thank you so much. We go down, right?
Yeah, I think so. So before I call the other members, I'm going to maybe take a couple of minutes to talk about Pratham. I know many of you here have heard about Pratham. It's interesting, what I've heard about Pratham from some of you, but I'm going to take a couple of minutes to talk about Pratham and how we got part of, Deepak sort of spoke about this, how we got involved with this wonderful initiative. And I was telling Alex, today is the Alex Counts Love Day for all that he's sort of done. A big shout out to you, Alex. So Pratham was started 25 years back, and the origins of Pratham was that, children in Mumbai, in the slums of Mumbai, did not have access to preschool. And we started with the idea of providing preschool education for children in the slums of Mumbai. And that's what we focused, I'd say, for the first maybe 5 years of our journey, is providing access to schooling or education to children. But as we started working with communities, we realized there was an invisible problem. And the invisible problem is children were beginning to go to school, but they were not actually learning. And our tagline is every child in school and learning well. And if you look at India as a country, I think we made significant strides in the idea of children going to school or enrolled in school. So, whatever stats you can look at, 97% of the children are actually enrolled in school. But the learning well is a problem. So 50% of children in a fifth grade classroom in India are not able to read a basic text. And that's where we focus much of our energies over the last 15 years is how do you build a strong foundation so that children can learn and thrive? This method's called teaching at the right level. And that method is sort of, we work directly both in communities and schools, but we also partner with governments to actually deliver the same method. Over the last 25 years, we've actually served over 50 million children, both directly through our work and in partnership with government. And this method is now getting replicated in parts of Africa. So the teaching at the right level, and I think it's one of those interesting initiatives which sort of originated in India is actually getting replicated in a different context. It's something that we are extremely proud about, but it is, our focus very much remains in India. We also do the other thing that we do is training of youth. And I think several of the panelists have spoken about jobs. Jobs is a big thing in India. Over the last 10 years, we've trained about 100,000 young people to get, get jobs in the market. And, we've seen that incomes have tripled, quadrupled after they've been through our programs. And the third leg of our sort of work is around research and advocacy. And we do a lot of work in publishing data, the annual status of education report. I'm not going to get into this. But our journey with IPA was interesting because I do remember this, Deepak and I flew into the suburbs of Washington, D.C., if I remember, after much coaxing from Alex Counts saying, can you please come? It was the day of the D.C. Gala. And we had about 6 people in the room. There was Matthew Spacey from Magic Bus, Deval Sangvi, if you remember. And, frankly, when I got into the room, at least, and Deepak and I were like, where is this all headed? And I think it's been a sort of an interesting sort of journey. And as Minoo said, it's this whole, it's been a journey of learning and getting to know each other. And I must say that I've actually come to understand and appreciate the work of several of the organizations in the room. And I'm really proud as to where we've sort of got. And again, Alex has been sort of the quarterback to help us sort of get here. And again, big thanks to him. Why do we see this to be an important sort of effort, the collaboration? Pratham as an organization has a history of collaboration. So when we started in 95, we came together because the city government of Mumbai, UNICEF, and corporate India wanted to do something together to address the issue of school education. And that's how we got together. And whether it's the ASR initiative where we collaborate with 600 other NGOs, there is a history of actually working with civil society organizations, with other organizations. It's something that we truly believe that in a country as large and complex as India, I don't think one organization can humanly solve a problem. I think the more people who can sort of get together, the more people who can work together. And this is a start in the United States for us to come together and at least understand our work. But I think there's a lot more that can be achieved if we can actually collaborate on the ground. And with that, I'm going to actually call my fellow members of the India Philanthropy Alliance to come on stage. Rahul Saxena from VisionSpring. Meenakshi Mahajan from Magic Bus. Ranjani Saigal from Ekal Vidyalaya, USA. Shefali Sunderlal from Cry America. Swati Chaudhary from Arogya World. And Gouri Sadhwani from the Akanksha Fund, USA. There was one member who couldn't make it today, Dasra Philanthropy. I mean, I have a message from Deval Sangvi, who's the founder and the CEO of Dasra, which I will have an opportunity to read out later. So the way we're going to do this, I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity for everybody to talk a little bit about each of their organizations, as well as, and I'm going to tee up one question for each of them, with the exception of Meenakshi, because, I'm going to ask two questions to Meenakshi. We roughly have about 5 minutes for each of them, and depending on how we are, we'd like to sort of throw it open to the audience for maybe a couple of questions. So I'm going to start with Rahul. Rahul, the way we're going to do this, a quick introduction about VisionSpring. Once you're done with that, a follow-up question to you.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So VisionSpring, what we focus on is providing unblurred vision to people who are below the poverty line. And we are a global organization out of New York and also out of Africa and India. India happens to be 60% of our global operations. To give you a sense of proportion, that why blurry vision? Blurry vision, can you imagine yourselves, all of you, take off your glasses for even 10 minutes, or to live your entire life without a pair of glasses that corrects your blurry vision? 2.2 billion people estimated live in this world without a pair of spectacles because they are not aware, or they can't afford, or don't have access to it. 550 million of those are in India and affect anywhere from education. So 10% of children, all children around the world, whether Chinese or Indian or African, have a problem with their eyes because that's how nature is. And 80% of learning at the ages of 5 to 15 are affected by visual acuity, 80% of it. That's education. If you look at productivity, it affects anywhere from 20 to 30%. So we did a controlled trial with the University of Ireland and with Tata Tea. The plantation tea pickers, their productivity went up by about 22% for 30-year-olds, and 50-year-olds had productivity increase about 30%. So that's for productivity and living. We have done work with the Banarsi sari makers in the constituency of the Prime Minister. We just finished 1 lakh exams and dispensing of glasses. So globally, and the third is, which you will probably find more interesting, is that we're working to make a safe environment for the truckers. Our surveys have shown that 70% of the truckers in India, when you go on the roads from Delhi to Agra or anywhere else, don't wear glasses, even though they need them. So we are working on 3 themes: C to earn, C to learn, and C to be safe. Globally, we provided 6 million people glasses, In India, 4 million. We are growing at the rate of 1 million a year. And we are funded globally, but a lot of funding does come out of India CSR. So that's about VisionSpring.
Thank you. I must add that we've been very fortunate to actually have a collaboration with VisionSpring. Last year, we touched close to 80,000 young people, and we're sort of building on that collaboration. I'm very happy to sort of share that as well. Talk about complementarity and collaboration, and clearly this is an example. So Rahul, one of the things that people often ask is when you have a group like this, can it really help increase giving in the US to India and specifically for members like ourselves? And what's your view on that?
Right. So I think if you look at the alignment of with the social objectives of India, whether it's education or health or anything else, we have to start with that premise that people do have that alignment. But the problem is that how do we get the alignment to turn into dollars that actually end up being with the foundations and rather with the organizations that actually deliver to the end user? Now, the institution, so if you look at the donors, they are institutions like foundations or individuals, which is the broader Indian diaspora. Both work with one clear objective, is that hitting the goal, which is, here's what I want to do, and does it really end up being with the person who actually needs it? So the first, one of the primary things that we think we are bringing to the table in this alliance is the whole set of processes that ensure transparency and accountability. Unless you can ensure that when I give, and I'm talking about personally as an individual, I would never give to an organization that I don't know what they're going to do with my money. And in particular, I think as in growing up in India and so on, I'm just a skeptical person when it comes to giving. And yes, it explains the behavior of practically all of us. But the important thing is that once you say that there's measurement of the impact, you predict an impact, you then show why you didn't achieve it, and you're transparent about it, and accountability is there, and you hold up, you put up your hand and say, look, I missed the target because of X, Y, and Z reasons, and then you say what you're going to do as a corrective action. So that's transparency and good governance and delivery. The individual, on the other hand, wants the same, but also needs an emotional connect. So I have found that in trying to get money, my friends to give money, the emotional connect has worked well. So there's a friend who put in $10,000 and said, Rahul, I've never really touched 4,000 lives with $10,000 as you have helped. So we did 3,200 people in Punjab, and he comes from Punjab. And within 3 months, he gave me $500,000 to just do that. So the Indian diaspora, I think, responds. So we have, as I was speaking about it before in the form of a question, adopt a village. So we are now taking, health is a state-level subject in India. So we have just worked, I'm just coming back from Chandigarh last week. We launched a program called Clear Vision Punjab, where the 27 million people of Punjab will be our target for 10 years. And we have, just launched a program with Ms. Irani in the textile ministry. We've done this to demonstrate to the government that the brand and delivery is very important. So to come back to your question, how do you sort of elicit the response from the diaspora is by two things: clear processes, good governance, and an accountability, and an emotional connect. Once you've got those two things going together, then it'll happen. What does that do for the Alliance? We have, just to give you an idea, we are able to raise, because we've established clear processes and governance, and I've sat on corporate boards. Our board runs just as professionally as any other board in any telecom company or industry that I worked in. So by June of every year, pretty much we raise about 110% of our requirements, and we sort of our funding people say we have no work to do, essentially. So the point being,
Yeah.
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 So
Can
I
we all
think
sign up with you?
Yeah. So I think the whole intent is to really share those practices.
Yeah, so I mean, transparency, efficacy, and accountability, if I could just sort of summarize that. Okay. Next up, Meenakshi from, if you could, a quick intro to Magic Bus, and then after which I can.
Hi, I'm Meenakshi, and I'm with Magic Bus USA as Director of Communications and Development. Magic Bus started about 20 years back in Mumbai, and we started as a very small program through some funding from UNICEF. Over the years, we've really grown and expanded. We are now in 23 states all across India. We work with 350,000 children directly every year. And we deliver some of our programs through trained youth volunteers. We have about 6,000 trained youth volunteers who deliver our program in communities. The overarching goal of the work that we are doing is really to see that we help the children that we work with cross that journey from childhood to livelihoods. The end goal of everything that Magic Bus does is to see that children who go through our program as young adults, they have the skills that allow them to get a stable job and hence break the cycle of poverty. We are mainly working with age groups of 12 to 18-year-olds, and our program starts at 12 because that's really the age that we see children in India start dropping out of school for several reasons. Either it's too difficult for girls, it's certain other issues. So that's the age we start working with children. And the four goals that I would say that we are looking at is to ensure that all the children that we work with complete school, they gain essential life skills and employability skills, and that no one marries under the age of 18, because early marriage in India has its own repercussions. There are a lot of implications as to the health, as to the families that you're raising in the future. So that's one of our main goals, to make sure that no one in our program marries under the age of 18. And I'm happy to say that while child marriage, almost 27% of Indian girls are married before the age of 18. Girls in Magic Bus programs, less than 5% of them married before 18 years. So that's one key impact that we are very, very proud of.
Thanks, Meenakshi. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to ask one question, so we are able to get through the others as well. So I suppose one of the things when you have an alliance like this, sort of building on what I asked Rahul, was that how does it benefit donors on this end? And how does it how can it benefit end beneficiaries or people that we work with on the ground? And a group like this, do you see what's the sort of value for both the donors as well as end beneficiaries?
Yeah, and to answer that question, I'd just like to touch a little bit upon the power of collaborations and partnerships. So Magic Bus, at our heart, we are a community-based organization, and we believe completely in collaborations and partnerships. A strong part of our programming is the Community Connect, where we work with parents, with school systems, with the government. We work with local leaders and with other nonprofits. So, and the reason we do that is because we believe that in order to bring about systemic change and bring change over the long term, it's essential to pull in everyone. We can't do it alone. And like you said, they are, and I think Nishant also mentioned it at one point, poverty is a multidimensional problem. There's poverty of education, poverty of health, poverty of so many different issues. So it's only when you bring in everyone that you can start addressing it. What we've seen in recent years is that Indian Americans are doing very well all over the world. And India itself is doing very well. It's a vibrant economy. And there's this whole conversation about the young demographic of India. And at the same time, there's a lot of urgency in many of us, because as individuals, we are doing well, yet we see that there's this huge youth population which may not have the right education, which may not have the right skills training that enables them to move on to a secure life in future. So to address the sense of urgency, we really need to address problems at a systemic level and to go for long-term change. We can't do that alone. And when we address this problem, we are not only addressing, I think, at the system level, but we are also addressing the concerns that our donors have and what we would want our program participants to have in the future. So I think that power of collaboration, of looking at what are the common challenges that all of us as organizations face, but with that overarching goal of a better life for the underprivileged in India, no matter what work we are doing, whether it's in vision or health or education or livelihoods, bringing all of that in under a larger umbrella and working together. Later on, we are going to have the panel on public policy, and that's a great example of what collaborations like IPA can do and how it can really help our donors, Magic Bus donors and Magic Bus program participants, to address and reach that end goal that we have.
Thank you. At the root of it is help us at least understand some of the common challenges so that we're able to, both donors, good donors can get together and also help to end sort of communities as a whole.
I can just, sort of add one point over there, and that relates to, a lot of times our donors are giving to certain projects while we might be needing projects, we might be needing funding for areas which have a greater need. And by coming together and talking about issues like that, I think we can really address the areas which have greater need and encourage donors to give to that. So that in end benefits our donors, it benefits our program participants.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Ranjani, Saigal, Ekal Vidyalaya, USA, Ekal Foundation.
Thank you very much. It's really special to be here on Gandhi Jayanti because the mission of our organization is the upliftment of villages. India, as you know, has 640,000 villages, and we have taken it upon ourselves to uplift the last mile of the villages, the remotest of the villages, 100,000 of them. Where we are an organization that started about 30 years ago. And I think by the end of this year, we started in 60 villages. By the end of 2020, we will be in 100,000 villages, which is indeed a very, very special moment for us. We started with the first intervention was to bring basic literacy to these villages. The villages that I'm talking about, there are no roads within 6 kilometers of these villages. They are very much in tribal, rural areas where there really are no viable access to government services of many natures, whether it's health, education, economic opportunities. They really are pretty cut off from the rest of the world. So the first intervention that we started was the Vidyalaya, which is a school, a single teacher school, which was very innovative in its approach in the sense of that it runs during the time that the children are not working in the farms or doing anything like that, so there's no excuse from the parents to not send their child to school. We take the school into the village, we take a local youth and train them to be teachers. So kind of a little house on the prairie model where we have multi-grade classroom, bringing reading, writing and arithmetic to children who are between the ages of 6 and 14. These children, of course, later once they have an motivation and understanding of what literacy and education can do for them, go on into, are willing to walk a few kilometers to maybe go to a government school that might be in their middle and high school. That was an intervention we started right in the beginning. And today, I think that gives us the base for access into the village. Every day, we have about 2.8 million children come to our schools. And also, what this has given us is a live and permanent presence in the village. We have a credible presence in the village. When we go and talk, people will listen to us. The other two interventions that we now have is health and skill development, actually moving towards economic opportunity. We are running, again, very interesting, innovative last mile health programs that work, actually a lot of focus on anemia, on malnutrition. We not only teach them, not only do the health camps and things like that, but teach them how to eat better and have a better lifestyle that will help prevent the problems that they may be facing. With respect to skill development also, women are a very big focus for us, where we really work on providing skills through tailoring is a big opportunity that we have used in the villages, and also other little skills that we provide training in. in the area of agriculture, we are providing better training so that the outputs from the agriculture is much better. So our women, we have had about 100,000 women go through our tailoring programs, and they earn about 2,000 to 5,000 rupees. And as one of the girls said, Didi, we don't have to become servants in the cities. So that's a very, very big aim for us, that people live with self-confidence and self-worth. Moving forward from about 5 years ago, we've really charged everything up with technology. We have tablets now that come into our villages, into our schools, and we are using that for improved breadth and depth of curriculum that we offer. We also have a mobile computer van that goes into the rural villages to bring digital literacy to our youth. As we all know, without digital literacy, today we are illiterate. And as one of the ladies who came to my computer bus said, Didi, aapne hame bhavishya ki or haath lagane ka avsar diya. You allowed us to touch our future. Speaking of a success story, my favorite one is a young lady by the name of Kalpana Mahatto, who used to be working at home and couldn't go to school because she had to take care of her siblings. When Ekal came, she could take her siblings and go to school. And later, very, very successfully, is now enrolled, is doing her BTech in electrical engineering. And her vision, she says, is to go back to the village and use her skills to make a difference.
Thank you, Ranjani. So the reach of 100,000 villages is obviously very, very impressive. But I know when we started this journey, Ramesh Bhai was actively involved. I think one of the questions is, what has been the reaction to your internal stakeholders to IPA? Has there been skepticism? Has there been optimism? What's it been like? And it's going to be particularly useful for others in this room who are sort of thinking about this. And what's been the general sort of mood consensus inside Ekal for this?
Sure. Actually, in the beginning, I thought there might be some skepticism, but I'm really surprised to see how excited they are to see this opportunity. And particularly, it's for us, I think this collaboration makes a lot of sense, just from an Ekal perspective, because we think of Ekal as an operating system, where we have this presence, we have this massive distribution opportunity, but we need to put apps on top, whether that is in the area of health, whether that is in other areas where there might be an expert, who is really delved deep. In fact, just a few minutes ago, we were talking to VisionSprings here, and I can think about Malaria No More, all of these people, for us, collaboration makes perfect sense. So actually our stakeholders now, and donors, I think most of us will say this, that donors are actually very excited that when they collaborate with us, the return on their investment can only be better, right? If I know on our tablets, for example, we are putting some of Pratham's content on it, and that's better for our villagers. It's better for the person who created that content. So from our perspective, this makes perfect sense, because we think holistic development of the village is not something we can do alone, and we have that base. That's what is our differentiator. And everybody can come and join us and make a difference to our villages. So it's been a very, very positive impact.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ranjani. I want to make sure that we get through this. So Shefali, quick introduction about CRY. And, if I can request, I don't mean to sort of put pressure on the time, but maybe 2 minutes on each of your organizations for the next set of panelists, so that you have enough time to actually address the question and stuff.
So CRY America is a 501c3 registered organization in the US. And we have a supporter base of 25,000 donors and 2,000 very committed volunteers. And because of the support that we have received from our donors and our volunteers, we've been able to reach out to over 700,000 children living across 3,000 communities in India through support to 90 projects in India and the USA. Our partner CRY in India, CRY stands for Child Rights and You, has been working since 1979, based out of Mumbai, has impacted the lives of over 3 million children, and has supported over 300 initiatives across India that work on children's rights. CRY India has a supporter base of over 125,000 individual donors, over 3,500 volunteers, and a large number of corporates. Of course, 35 years, CRY has been working on the ground on children's issues. The CRY is the CRY's child rights model is based on 3 pillars. One is looking at children's issues holistically, which is from a child rights perspective, the UNCRC, basically the right to education, healthcare, nutrition, protection from child labor, child marriage, child sexual abuse, and the participation of children in processes that affect their lives. Over a period of many years, CRI has also developed really good planning, monitoring, evaluation systems on the ground. Not only do we fund projects, but we also build the capacities of the projects that we fund, because we have learned over a period of time that just giving money is not the only solution. You have to enhance the capacities of the projects. We also work with government bodies at the local level to ensure systemic changes, because setting up of parallel schools and hospitals and all, there's only that much that you can do that. And ultimately working with the communities on the ground to get them to really understand what their issues are and what the problems are, and galvanizing them to work with the government and other agencies to look at issues and decisions that are in the best interests of their children. Out of the 300 projects that CRI has supported in India, multiple of them have become really good models in the field. They are examples of, state governments are now replicating the work that they do. Many of them have become advisors to the various national bodies also on education, healthcare, and other things, and on other issues. And I really would also like to thank the media for all the support that they have given CRI both in India and in the US, because the media is a very, very critical component of promoting the work we do and pushing our work out.
Okay, thank you, Shefali. I followed CRI for many years. I know several panelists have already spoken about it, but it's a question, for an organization like CRI, how do you see collaboration sort of coming out of this, right? Because, I know you sort of spoke about holistic development of the child and stuff. From a collaboration perspective, what are some opportunities that you see for an organization like CRI? And also for members of this alliance, of course.
Yeah, so when I was given this topic, I thought about it and I said, wow, I can talk for half a day on this topic. What are the collaborations that can
But you
come
have 2
out?
minutes.
Yes, but Bharat reminds me I have 2 minutes. So yes, the CRI model itself is built on this whole principle of collaboration between donors, volunteers, media, government bodies, our project partners, communities, children, etc. And CRI also works with state alliances in India and even at the national level on policy advocacy. So when it comes to the IPA, we are thrilled. We can see, at least I can see plenty of collaborations, both sides here in the USA and in India. And maybe one or two on this side could be that, under the banner of the IPA, we could push out and promote and project and spotlight each organization and the work of IPA through the media. So we, position the entire sector and also get more new donors to come in. The other thing we could do this side is build on Chalo Week, where we can look at a joint fundraising, pushing it out to all our bases and looking at how we can get more involvement from the Indian diaspora, And one of the things may be to get one or two big business leaders of Indian origin to maybe make a matching grant, because I don't know what it is. If you do have that and you can say, okay, double your donation because help us get this $100,000 that has been given as a matching grant. New donors tend to come in and donors tend to give more. So maybe we could build on something like that. In terms of cross-fertilization of learnings, every organization here has really wonderful strengths in something or the other, maybe project planning evaluation, maybe organizing fantastic $4 million dinner galas, maybe, in the area of financial reporting and recording, or maybe media or digital or social media. We can take all this and understand and learn from each other's experiences. We could also kind of document it into a small manual or guideline on how-tos, which would not only benefit the IPA members, but outside other organizations who might also want to start this kind of work or improve their work, etc. CRI is also very, we find that baseline data recording is very, very important, because once you have established your benchmark baseline data in the villages, how many children, how many families, how many schools, how many child labor, children who are being abused and or ill and things, malnutrition children, it is easier and much more effective to have plans based on that kind of baseline data. And then you can actually, your impact monitoring and your impact reporting becomes much more scientific, because you have done it based on a baseline. If we have 3,000 villages we're working in, and if we put all these pots of data together, we'll have fantastic, authentic data that we can have. Because I was just looking at this data, that we always have official data, unofficial data, and we can never agree on what is the real data. For example, on child labor, somewhere it's 12 million, somewhere it's 15 million. Did I hear you say 150 million this? Globally. So, okay, but so what would you say would be in India? Because there's always this. Yes. Thank you for backing me up. So that's the thing. And if we can come up and say, okay, in 25,000 villages or 50,000, I don't know, Bala, what's the number? And say, this is it. We've done our research, and here's what the story is. Here is, the issues we're working on. Here is our collective impact. I think it would be huge.
Yeah, I think that's going to be that's obviously the ideal state, but it's going to take a while for us to be able to sort of get there.
Can I say one more? Time out.
Well,
okay,
you can, since you've said one more, I'm not going to be able to tell you that. Please.
The other thing is, in the field in India, if we could, we all have our strengths again. Somebody working on children's issues, somebody on livelihood, somebody on higher education, somebody on water, somebody on fruit trees. If we can all get together and work in the same area, again, this is going to take time.
Sure.
It will be fantastic. The impact would be huge.
Okay. I've got a sign from MR saying we really need to double up.
Yes, Swati, I'm done.
Swati,
so
next up is Swati Chaudhary from Arogya World. Swati, quick intro to Arogya. And I will also I will raise the, so we've just come off a UN General Assembly week. And there's been all this talk about SDGs and all that good stuff. What might come out of, SDGs for this group? Do you see some real possibilities? So Arogya World and then the SDG. Please.
Very quickly. But before I do that, I would love to engage the audience just a little bit. I would love to ask you a very personal question. You don't have to answer, but I'd be grateful if you participated. Raise your hand if you know somebody close to you, family, friend, or colleague, who suffers from diabetes. And look around you, folks. This is not normal in every room. And raise your hand or keep your hand raised if you know somebody who has suffered from a heart attack. And look around you. This is not normal. And you don't have to raise your hand, but if you've lost somebody close to you to heart disease. Yeah. So there's a lot of heart in the room because of preventable, non-communicable disease. And Arogya works with the mission to change the course of chronic disease. It affects South Asians disproportionately. 1 in 4 deaths amongst Indian adults is attributed to cardiovascular disease. And the percentage is growing. So Arogya works at the nexus of education and lifestyle change. And there are many other factors. We also come with the humility that this is a systems issue. There are issues about access to medication, affordability, quality of service, and financial assets in general. But one area that we've identified specifically that we feel ready to tackle is lifestyle choices. So that's the space that we work in. So that's the intro. And connecting that to sustainable development goals, where your heart is, what's causing so much hurt in this room and out there, is also where the data is spotlighting. So the Sustainable Development Goals is part of the reason we joined the IPA, because we understand that we ourselves alone cannot move the needle in a place like India. And India is also a very interesting place to work in an alliance, because the government, especially on the central level, makes a lot of room for philanthropy and nonprofit space to come in and become allies in implementation. which is partly what makes it a very saturated field, but also what makes it exciting to work in there. And it's difficult to engage in public policy debates and conversations in India if you are not part of an alliance. If you're very small and there are issues of territorialities amongst nonprofits, and we're sort of stuck in the system where we work in silos. So if I were to pick an SDG on behalf of just Arogya, it would be SDG number 3, which has to do with health and well-being, and zoning into that 3.4, which deals with non-communicable disease. But this conversation is more about SDG 17, which is partnerships for the goal. And an alliance like this, which has 11 members, is capable of so much more, of harnessing the power of collective impact in a way that any of us individually wouldn't be able to. So those are the SDG possibilities that we see.
Okay, thank you. I don't mean to,
and thank you so much for sharing this personal thing with me.
Thank you. Last but not the least, Gouri, Akanksha Fund. I've been seeing signs of the end and stuff, but...
I know. Every time you've looked at the panelists before me, your eyes get bigger and bigger and like, last minute. So I am feeling the pressure. And I also do not want to stand between you all and my good friend, Arti, who is here to talk to you about her new book. So I have double pressure. I'm really just... Honestly, Akanksha Fund, which I run here in the US, is just really proud to be a part of this very inspiring group. So I can tell you about how great Akanksha is because I believe it is. And I think we have a great model, but you can also just go look it up. Akanksha, I will just talk a little bit about what we do and then just talk about why we joined the Alliance. We work on quality education. So education is a big part of what many of us do. We believe, our theory in Akanksha, both here in the US and in India, is that if you don't have a well-educated, informed, critically thinking population, you don't have a strong democracy. So it's not enough for us to just be thinking about, can people read or write? Do they have jobs? But how do we prepare for the world's largest democracy to be a healthy and politically and economically sustainable one, right? And so Akanksha's work is focused on partnering with the government to create pilot schools where we prove that you can do this within the same amount of money that the government currently spends per child. It's pretty amazing. I don't know what else to say about it other than it's great. But one thing we do know is that we are relatively small. We are a small organization, both in India and here, compared to many of the, to my illustrious partners up here. But we recognize and we need to be able to work with others like those here and others in India to be able to make any kind of impact. India is a pretty big place. I don't know if you've heard that, but there's a lot of people there, right? And our problems are equally as big, right? And there's not going to be one organization, one leader, one company, one government that is ever going to solve it. And so Akanksha believes, and I personally believe, and I'm really very grateful to Deepak and to others who have sort of put aside their personal or organizational hats and have said, we need to work together, because if we don't work together, we're just going to be sort of pitted up against each other, and that doesn't really serve any of us. So we're very excited to be a part of the Alliance. I feel very grateful to be among such leaders and such yappers. Who knew?
Thank you, Gouri. I think there was a... I know we sort of 5 minutes over, but the one last closing comment, I think it seems like collaboration is sort of a consistent theme. And maybe next year when we come for this MR, one ask maybe is that maybe we put out 2 or 3 success stories of collaboration, because I think that's something that everybody would love to sort of learn. With that, I want to thank all my fellow members on the panel, and over to you, MR.